The Redmond townhouse glowed with the fire of 1,000 candles that cold February night, their warm shimmer washing over the frost-silvered stones of Mayfair. Along the street, carriages stood in patient rows, while footmen in powdered wigs helped ladies in rustling silk descend into the sharp winter chill. Inside, London's finest had assembled for what Lady Redmond boasted would be the most unforgettable dinner of the entire season. A daring declaration in a city where grandeur was a weapon, and every hostess fought for dominance in the endless game of social display. Lady Isabeau Montfort stood before the tall windows of the withdrawing room, watching the last rays of daylight fade behind the skeletal branches of the square's ancient oaks. The reflection in the glass showed a young woman of striking beauty, chestnut hair arranged in elaborate curls, green eyes that held both intelligence and something untamed, a silk gown of deep emerald that complemented her pale skin. Yet the face that stared back at her seemed somehow caged, like a wild creature forced into a gilded enclosure. "Isabeau, darling, do step away from that window. The draught will ruin your complexion," her mother, the Countess of Hawkstone, chided gently, adjusting the magnificent sapphires at her throat. Margaret Montfort was everything a countess should be, poised, elegant, perfectly controlled. Everything Isabeau struggled to become. "Yes, Mamma." Isabeau turned from the window, though her spirit remained restless. At 22, she had spent her entire life preparing for this inevitable future. Marriage to Lord Philip Bramfield, the union arranged when she was still in leading strings. Philip was suitable in every way, wealthy, titled, handsome in a pleasant sort of manner. He was kind, he was safe, he was utterly devastatingly boring. The thought made guilt twist in her stomach. What sort of ungrateful creature was she, to want more than security and comfort? Women of her station did not marry for passion. They married for alliance, for property, for the continuation of bloodlines. Love, if it came at all, was expected to develop gradually, sensibly, like a well-tended garden. Yet Isabeau's heart had never learned to be sensible. "Lord Bramfield will be here presently," her father, Edmund Montfort, Earl of Hawkstone, announced as he entered the room. He was a distinguished man in his late 50s, with steel-grey hair and the bearing of one who had never questioned his place in the world's natural order. "The announcement of your engagement will be made official at next month's ball. It is time, Isabeau. Past time, in fact." "Yes, Papa." The words came automatically, trained responses from years of obedience. "You will be a beautiful bride," her mother said with genuine warmth, reaching to squeeze Isabeau's gloved hand. "And Philip is a good man. You are fortunate, my dear." Fortunate. Yes, that was what she was supposed to feel. The sound of new arrivals drifted up from the entrance hall, Lord and Lady Redmond greeting their guests with practiced enthusiasm. Soon they would descend those stairs, take their places at that long dining table, and Isabeau would sit beside Philip, smiling and nodding while he discussed crop rotation and the latest developments in agricultural science with the gentleman on his other side. "Come, daughter," her father said, offering his arm. "Lord and Lady Redmond will be announcing dinner soon." The grand staircase of the Redmond townhouse was a masterpiece of curved marble, designed to showcase descending ladies to maximum advantage. Isabeau had descended such staircases 100 times, always aware of the eyes upon her, always maintaining the perfect posture and serene expression expected of an earl's daughter. But tonight, as she reached the landing where the stairs curved, something made her look up, and her entire world tilted on its axis. He stood at the base of the stairs, conversing with Lord Redmond, and Isabeau's first thought was that this man did not belong in a drawing room. He belonged on a battlefield, or prowling some ancient forest, or commanding a ship through storm-tossed seas. Everything about him spoke of barely leashed power, the broad shoulders that strained against his perfectly tailored black evening coat, the military bearing that no amount of civilian dress could disguise, the sharp, predatory awareness in his eyes as they swept the room. Those eyes, dark as midnight, set in a face that might have been carved by some ancient god with a preference for harsh, masculine beauty. High cheekbones, a strong jaw, lips that looked as though they rarely smiled. His black hair was longer than fashion dictated, pulled back in a simple queue that somehow made him look more dangerous rather than less. And then those midnight eyes found hers. The impact was physical, like a blow to the chest that stole her breath. Time seemed to slow, the chatter of the assembled guests fading to a distant murmur. Isabeau felt pinned by that gaze, studied with an intensity that made heat flood her cheeks. No man had ever looked at her like this, as though she were the only person in the room, as though he could see straight through the carefully constructed facade to the wild, restless spirit beneath. She should look away. Every rule of propriety demanded it, but she could not. She was caught, held captive by those dark eyes, and something in her chest tightened painfully. "Heavens!" her mother whispered beside her. "That is the Duke of Blackthorn. The Duke of Blackthorn." Even Isabeau, who paid little attention to society gossip, knew that name. Alistair Navarre, the War Duke, who had inherited his title at 18 and immediately left for the continent to fight Napoleon's forces. He had returned to England only twice in the past decade, each visit brief and shrouded in the same mystery that seemed to cling to him like morning mist. Stories about the Duke circulated through London's drawing rooms like wildfire, whispered tales of his prowess in battle, his coldness toward the women who threw themselves at him, his preference for solitude over society. Some said he was heartless. Others claimed he was simply damaged beyond repair. All agreed that he was dangerously, impossibly attractive and utterly unreachable. "I did not know he was in London," her father murmured, his tone carefully neutral. "Lady Redmond mentioned she had secured a particular prize for tonight's gathering," the Countess replied. "I assume she meant His Grace. What a coup for her." They continued down the stairs, and with each step, Isabeau felt the Duke's gaze upon her, like a physical touch. Her skin prickled with awareness, her heart racing in a most unseemly manner. She had never experienced anything like this pull, this magnetic force that made her want to forget every lesson in deportment she had ever learned and simply, what? Run to him, run from him. She could not say. As they reached the bottom of the stairs, Lord Redmond turned to them with his usual bonhomie. "Ah, Hawkstone, Lady Hawkstone, and the lovely Lady Isabeau. May I present His Grace, the Duke of Blackthorn? Your Grace, the Earl and Countess of Hawkstone, and their daughter, Lady Isabeau Montford." The Duke bowed, the movement precise and controlled. When he straightened, his eyes met Isabeau's again, and she saw something flicker in their depths. Recognition, perhaps, though they had never met before, or something darker, more primal. "My lord, my lady." His voice was deep, rough-edged, as though he had forgotten how to use it for pleasantries. "Lady Isabeau." The way he said her name sent shivers down her spine. "Your Grace," she managed, executing a perfect curtsy, despite her trembling knees. "Welcome back to London." "I am uncertain whether I am welcome or merely tolerated," he replied, and there was something almost sardonic in his tone. "Society has little use for soldiers once the fighting is done." "On the contrary, Your Grace," her father interjected smoothly. "England owes a great debt to men like yourself. Your service is remembered with gratitude." The Duke's expression did not change, but Isabeau sensed his disbelief. She found herself studying him more closely, the rigid set of his shoulders, the way his hands remained still at his sides, as though he were preventing them from reaching for a weapon, the careful distance he maintained from everyone around him. This was a man who did not know how to be at ease, she realized, a man who carried his battles with him wherever he went. "Isabeau!" She turned to find Philip approaching, his pleasant face creased with a smile. Lord Philip Bramfield was tall and fair-haired, with the kind of amiable handsomeness that mothers approved of and young ladies found unobjectionable. He had known Isabeau since childhood, and their betrothal was so long-standing that it felt less like a romantic arrangement and more like a business contract awaiting final signatures. "Philip," she greeted him, relieved to have somewhere else to direct her attention. "I hope you are well." "Indeed. Father and I have been reviewing the tenant agreements for the northern properties. Fascinating work, truly. I must tell you about the new irrigation system we are implementing." But Isabeau barely heard him. Despite her best efforts, her awareness remained fixed on the dark figure standing just beyond Philip's shoulder. She could feel the Duke's gaze on her, steady and unrelenting, and it made concentration impossible. Philip, oblivious, continued his explanation of crop rotation schedules. The Duke did not move, did not speak, simply watched her with those midnight eyes. And Isabeau felt something shift inside her, something dangerous and exhilarating, like the first crack in a dam before the flood. Dinner was an exercise in refined torture. The Redmond dining room was a monument to aristocratic excess, gilded ceiling, crystal chandeliers, a table that could seat 40 with room to spare. Tonight, it hosted 30 of London's most influential families, arranged according to a complex hierarchy that placed Isabeau between Philip and an elderly dowager duchess, who spent most of the meal discussing her digestive complaints in vivid detail. The Duke of Blackthorn sat directly across from her. It was, Isabeau thought desperately, some form of cosmic punishment. Every time she raised her eyes from her plate, she met his gaze. Every time she attempted to focus on Philip's earnest discourse on modern farming techniques, she felt the Duke's attention on her, like a brand against her skin. He spoke little during the meal, responding to direct questions with clipped courtesy, but offering nothing beyond what politeness demanded. Yet his silence was more commanding than the animated conversations occurring around him. People were aware of him, the way forest creatures are aware of a predator in their midst, respectful, cautious, slightly fearful. "The war in Europe continues to dominate all discussion," Lord Redmond proclaimed from the head of the table. "Your Grace, you have recently returned from the continent. What is your assessment of Bonaparte's intentions?" The Duke set down his wineglass with deliberate care. "Bonaparte's intentions have never changed, my lord. He means to conquer all of Europe, and he will not stop until forced to do so by superior force." "Surely diplomacy might achieve," began a portly gentleman whose name Isabeau could not recall. "Diplomacy is a luxury afforded to nations not currently under invasion," the Duke interrupted, his tone flat. "I have seen what Bonaparte's diplomacy looks like. It involves burning villages and slaughtering civilians who resist French occupation." An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. Ladies shifted in their seats, gentlemen cleared their throats. No one spoke of such things at dinner parties, but Isabeau found herself leaning forward. "Is it truly so terrible?" she asked, the question escaping before she could think better of it. "The newspapers make it sound almost civilized." The Duke's eyes locked onto hers, and for a moment she saw something roar in their depths, something haunted and fierce. "The newspapers lie, Lady Isabeau," he said quietly. "War is never civilized. It is blood and mud and screaming horses. It is watching good men die for inches of worthless ground. It is—" He stopped abruptly, his jaw tightening. "Forgive me. This is not appropriate conversation for a lady's ears." "Perhaps not," Isabeau replied, refusing to look away, "but I prefer uncomfortable truth to comfortable lies." Something flickered across his face. Surprise, perhaps, or approval. For the first time that evening, his expression softened fractionally. "A rare sentiment in these circles," he murmured. "Isabeau has always had rather independent notions." Philip interjected with an indulgent laugh. "Though I am certain marriage will settle such independent thoughts require no settling, Bramfield," the Duke said, his voice carrying an edge that made Philip's smile falter. "They are not a condition to be cured." Philip blinked, uncertain how to respond to this unexpected defense. Isabeau felt her heart hammering against her ribs. No one had ever spoken of her wildness as though it were something valuable rather than problematic. "Yes, well," Philip managed, "Isabeau is certainly spirited. It is one of her many charms." The word spirited sounded patronizing coming from Philip's lips, as though she were a lively horse requiring a firm hand. The Duke's eyes narrowed slightly, and Isabeau knew, somehow she simply knew, that he heard the condescension too. The rest of the meal passed in a blur. Isabeau pushed food around her plate, participated in conversations without hearing them, smiled and nodded while her entire being remained focused on the silent magnetic presence across the table. When the ladies finally withdrew, leaving the gentlemen to their port and cigars, Isabeau felt as though she could breathe again. She followed her mother and the other women to the music room, where Lady Redmond's daughter performed a competent, if uninspired piece on the pianoforte. "The Duke is quite intense," whispered Lady Caroline Ashford, a friend since childhood who had married a viscount last season. She settled beside Isabeau on one of the silk settees, her eyes bright with curiosity. "Did you see the way he looked at you?" "I am certain you are mistaken," Isabeau replied, though her cheeks warmed. "Oh no, I am not mistaken at all. Every woman in that room noticed. Goodness, Isabeau, the War Duke was positively devouring you with his eyes. Caroline, Isabeau hissed, glancing around to ensure no one overheard. Do not be absurd. He was merely... I do not know what he was doing, but it was certainly not... It was certainly exactly what I said it was, Caroline interrupted with a knowing smile. How thrilling, and how terribly inconvenient, given that you are to marry Philip next month. The reminder landed like a stone in Isabeau's stomach. Philip, her betrothed, the man she was meant to spend the rest of her life with, in comfort and safety and soul-numbing predictability. The Duke means nothing to me, she said firmly. He is merely a curiosity, a momentary distraction. But even as she spoke the words, she knew they were lies. The gentlemen rejoined the ladies an hour later, bringing with them the scent of tobacco and brandy. Isabeau kept her eyes fixed determinedly on her embroidery, a pastoral scene of shepherdesses that her governess had insisted she complete years ago, and that she still hadn't finished, as the men filed into the room. She would not look for him. She would not... Lady Isabeau. His voice so close made her needle slip. She jabbed her finger, drawing a small bead of blood. Your Grace, she replied, looking up to find him standing directly before her. This close, she could see the fine lines at the corners of his eyes, the faint scar along his jaw, the almost imperceptible tremor in his left hand that he controlled through sheer force of will. You startled me. My apologies. He did not sound particularly apologetic. I wondered if you might favor us with a performance on the pianoforte. Lady Redmond mentioned you are quite accomplished. It was a simple request, the sort made at every gathering. Yet something in his tone suggested it was anything but simple. I'm afraid my skills are modest at best, Isabeau demurred, acutely aware of the eyes upon them, her mother's warning gaze, Philip's puzzled frown, Caroline's barely suppressed grin. Modest, the Duke repeated as though tasting the word. I doubt that. You do not strike me as a woman who does anything by halves, Lady Isabeau. The observation was too intimate, too knowing. It suggested he had been studying her, forming opinions, seeing past the careful social mask she wore. I shall play if it pleases the company, she said, rising from her seat. Better to have the activity to focus on than to remain here, caught in the intensity of his regard. She selected a piece by Mozart, technically challenging enough to require concentration, which meant she could avoid looking at the assembled guests. Her fingers found the keys automatically, muscle memory from years of practice taking over while her mind raced. What was he doing? Why had he singled her out? The Duke of Blackthorn, who was said to ignore every attempt by society's mothers to thrust their daughters into his path, had not only noticed her, but was actively seeking her attention. It was improper. It was dangerous. It was intoxicating. She finished the piece to polite applause and immediately moved to return to her seat. But the Duke was there, offering his arm with such smooth authority that refusing would have caused a scene. You play beautifully, he said, as he guided her across the room. His hand beneath her elbow was firm, warm even through her gloves. But you were not enjoying it. She hesitated, caught off guard by his perception. I play because it is expected, not because I love it. What do you love, then? The question was so direct, so unapologetically personal, that she nearly stumbled. Gentlemen did not ask such things. They discussed weather and fashion and the latest society gossip. They did not probe at the secret desires of a woman's heart. I love riding, she admitted before she could think better of it. Fast, across open country, where there are no fences or rules or expectations. Freedom, he said softly. You crave freedom. She turned to look at him fully and found his dark eyes studying her with an expression she could not name. Understanding, perhaps, or recognition. Do you not? She challenged. Something passed across his face. Pain, quickly suppressed. I lost my freedom in Spain, Lady Isabeau, on battlefields where freedom meant nothing except the freedom to die. The rawness of his words stole her breath. This close, she could see the shadows beneath his eyes, the tension in his jaw, the careful control he maintained over whatever demons haunted him. Then perhaps, she whispered, we are both prisoners, you to your past, and I to my future. His hand tightened fractionally on her arm. A future with Bramfield. It was not a question. Yes, she confirmed, the word tasting like ash. We are to be married next month. He does not deserve you." The declaration was low, fierce, completely inappropriate. Isabeau's heart stuttered. "You do not know me, Your Grace." "Do I not?" His eyes searched hers. "I know you are wild and fierce and achingly alive. I know you smile when convention demands it, but your eyes remain restless. I know you yearn for something more than the cage society has built for you, and I know—" He stopped himself, jaw clenching. "Forgive me, I overstep." Yes, he did. Wildly, scandalously, thrillingly. "You speak as though you know what it is to be caged," she said instead. "We are all caged, my lady. Some of us by expectation, others by memory. The bars look different, but the result is the same." Before Isabeau could respond, Philip appeared at her elbow, his expression concerned. "Isabeau, is everything quite all right?" She forced a smile, stepping back from the Duke's proximity. "Perfectly well, Philip. His Grace was just complimenting my playing." "Ah, yes, quite lovely." Philip nodded at the Duke with polite coolness. "Lady Isabeau is accomplished in many areas. I am a fortunate man." The Duke's expression became a mask of perfect, frigid courtesy. "Indeed, you must excuse me. I find I am not well suited to these gatherings. Good evening, Lady Isabeau Bramfield." He bowed and walked away, his military bearing carrying him through the crowd like a ship cutting through water. Isabeau watched him go, something in her chest aching. "Strange fellow," Philip remarked. "All that time in the wars, I suppose, makes a man odd." "Perhaps the wars simply revealed what was already there," Isabeau murmured. "What was that?" "Nothing, Philip, nothing at all." The carriage ride home was silent. Isabeau stared out the window at the dark streets of Mayfair, her mind replaying every moment, every word exchanged with the Duke of Blackthorn. "You crave freedom. He does not deserve you. We are all caged." "You were very quiet this evening," her mother observed. "Are you feeling unwell?" "Just tired, Mama." "The Duke of Blackthorn seemed quite taken with you." Isabeau's head snapped around. "I am certain you are mistaken." Her mother gave her a long, measured look. "I am not mistaken, my dear, and while the attention of a duke is flattering, you must remember your place. You are betrothed to Lord Bramfield. Nothing can change that." "I know, Mama." "Do you?" The Countess reached across to squeeze Isabeau's hand. "I know Philip may seem uninspiring, but he is good and kind and steady. Those qualities may not set your heart racing, but they will make for a peaceful, secure life. Passion fades, Isabeau. Stability endures." "And what if I want both?" The words escaped before Isabeau could stop them. Her mother sighed. "Then you want what most women want, and few receive. We must make our peace with reality, my darling. That is what it means to be a woman of our class." Isabeau turned back to the window, blinking against the sudden sting of tears. Her mother was right, of course. She had always known this. Marriage was duty, not desire. Security, not passion. But tonight, for the first time, she had glimpsed another possibility, had felt for just a moment what it might be like to be truly seen by someone, to have her wildness recognized not as a flaw, but as something beautiful. And that glimpse, she feared, would make her cage unbearable. 3 days passed before Isabeau saw the Duke of Blackthorn again. 3 days during which she told herself firmly that she would forget the encounter at the Redmond dinner. 3 days during which she failed spectacularly at that endeavor, finding her thoughts drifting to dark eyes and raw honesty at the most inconvenient moments. On the 4th day, he appeared at Hyde Park during the fashionable hour. Isabeau had not wanted to attend the daily promenade, a tedious ritual where London's elite displayed themselves like peacocks, seeing and being seen. But her mother had insisted, and Philip had arrived at Hawkstone House with his curricle, eager to show off his new matched greys. "They are magnificent animals," Isabeau said dutifully as they joined the parade of vehicles circling the park's main drive. And they were sleek, powerful horses that moved with perfect synchronization. She simply could not muster enthusiasm for them. "Cost a fortune, but worth every penny," Philip said proudly. "Father was not pleased with the expense, but I convinced him that appearances matter. A gentleman must maintain certain standards after all." Isabeau made a non-committal sound, her attention caught by a rider approaching from the opposite direction. Even at a distance she recognized him. The military bearing, the controlled power, the black horse that looked as though it belonged on a battlefield rather than in a London park. The Duke of Blackthorn. Her breath caught. He rode alone, as she somehow knew he would, keeping apart from the clusters of riders who travelled in chattering groups. His horse was a magnificent black stallion, taller and more muscular than the fashionable mounts around it, and he sat it with the ease of a man who had spent half his life in the saddle. As he drew closer, his eyes found hers across the distance. Time seemed to slow. The noise of the park faded. There was only the Duke, riding toward them with inexorable purpose, and Isabeau's racing heart. "I say, is that Blackthorn?" Philip squinted ahead. "Wonder what brings him out. Heard he despises social gatherings." Perhaps, Isabeau thought wildly, he had a reason to endure them now. The Duke reached them and drew his horse alongside the curricle with effortless skill. The stallion tossed its head, muscles rippling beneath its glossy coat, barely controlled energy evident in every line, much like its rider. "Bramfield," the Duke said with a curt nod. Then his eyes moved to Isabeau, and his expression softened almost imperceptibly. "Lady Isabeau, what a pleasure to encounter you on this fine afternoon." "Your Grace." She was proud that her voice remained steady. "I did not think you one for the promenade." "I am not, generally, but I find myself reconsidering certain habits." The way he said it, the way his eyes held hers, made it clear he was not speaking of riding in the park. Philip, oblivious to the undercurrents, launched into a discussion of horseflesh. "Magnificent animal you have there, Your Grace. Spanish breed, if I am not mistaken?" "Andalusian," the Duke confirmed, his attention still on Isabeau. "I acquired him in Spain. He has been with me through 4 campaigns." "A war horse in Hyde Park," Isabeau murmured. "Does he not find it tame?" The Duke's lips curved in what might have been a smile. "He finds it intolerable. As do I. We are both better suited to open country, where we can run without restraint." The words hung between them, laden with meaning that had nothing to do with horses or parks. "Perhaps you should return to the country then," Isabeau said, though something in her chest protested the suggestion. "If London does not suit you." "I had intended to." His dark eyes burned into hers. "But I find there is a compelling reason to remain." Heat flooded her cheeks. Beside her, Philip continued talking, completely unaware of the charged exchange occurring literally under his nose. "Thinking of breeding them with father's mares. The bloodlines would be exceptional. What do you think, Isabeau?" "I think," she said, tearing her gaze from the Duke with enormous effort, "that you should consult with someone more knowledgeable than I." "Nonsense, your opinion matters greatly to me." Philip patted her hand with absent affection. "After all, they will be your horses as well, once we are wed." The Duke's horse shifted restlessly, as though sensing its rider's sudden tension. Isabeau saw the muscle jump in the Duke's jaw, watched his hands tighten fractionally on the reins. "When is the happy occasion?" he asked, his tone carefully neutral. "The first Saturday in March," Philip replied cheerfully. "Just over 3 weeks now. The arrangements are nearly complete. It will be quite the event. The Montforts and Bramfields have been planning this union for years." "How organized?" The Duke's voice was flat. An awkward silence descended. Isabeau found herself unable to look at either man, her eyes fixed on the middle distance where a family of ducks paddled across the Serpentine. "Well," Philip said eventually, "we should continue our circuit. Mother is expecting us for tea." "A pleasure seeing you, Your Grace." "Bramfield." The Duke inclined his head, then turned to Isabeau. "Lady Isabeau, might I have a word? Privately." "I hardly think," Philip began, but Isabeau was already accepting the Duke's offered hand, allowing him to assist her down from the curricle. "Just a moment, Philip. His Grace likely wishes to discuss some matter of estate business with father. I can relay the message." It was a transparent excuse, and from Philip's frown, he knew it. But generations of breeding prevented him from making a scene in the middle of Hyde Park. "Very well. But do not wander far. It would not be seemly." The Duke led her a short distance away to a small grove of trees that provided minimal privacy from the curious eyes of the ton. His hand on her elbow was firm, almost possessive, and Isabeau felt the heat of it, even through her pelisse. "You should not have come down," she said when they were out of Philip's earshot. "People will talk." "Let them talk." His voice was rough. 3 weeks, Isabeau." The use of her given name without title or formality sent a shiver through her. "You must not call me that." Why? Because it is too intimate, too honest. He stepped closer, and she could smell leather and horse and something uniquely him, smoke and pine and danger. Everything about this is too intimate and too honest. I cannot seem to help myself around you. Your Grace, Alistair. His eyes blazed. My name is Alistair, and I want to hear you say it. Just once. I cannot. She shook her head, panic rising. This is madness. I am betrothed. In 3 weeks I will be married to Philip, and this, whatever this is, must stop before it begins. It has already begun. He caught her hand, his thumb tracing circles on her palm through the thin leather of her glove. The gesture was small, almost innocent, yet it felt more intimate than any touch she had ever experienced. It began the moment I saw you on those stairs, perhaps even before. Perhaps I have been waiting my entire life to find you. You do not know me, she whispered, though her treacherous body swayed toward him. I know enough. I know you are fire trapped in ice, wildness caged by convention. I know you feel this too, this pull between us. Deny it if you can. She could not. The lie would not form on her lips. It does not matter what I feel, she said instead, pulling her hand free, though it cost her. I have a duty, an obligation. I cannot simply abandon everything because of some attraction. Attraction. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Is that what you call this? This feeling that I cannot breathe properly unless I am near you? This certainty that I have been searching for something my entire life and only now found it. Attraction is too small a word for what burns between us, Isabeau. Stop. Her voice broke. Please stop. You are making this impossible. Good. His hand came up to cup her cheek, his thumb brushing away a tear she had not realized had fallen. Because the alternative, watching you marry a man who cannot see you, who will never appreciate the magnificent creature you are, that is what is truly impossible. He is a good man, she protested weakly. I do not doubt it, but he is not the right man. Not for you. His dark eyes searched hers. Tell me you love him, Isabeau. Tell me your heart races when he enters a room. Tell me he sees the real you, wild and untamed, and loves you for it rather than despite it. Tell me and I will walk away, I swear it. She opened her mouth, closed it. The words would not come, because they would be lies. I thought not. His voice gentled. I am not asking you to make any decisions today. I am simply asking you to acknowledge the truth, that what we feel is real, that it matters. It cannot matter, she said desperately. My father has given his word. The contracts are signed. The entire ton knows of our betrothal. To break it now would be scandalous, he finished. Shocking. Socially ruinous, perhaps. He leaned closer, his breath warm against her ear. But would it not be worth it? To be free? To choose your own path? I am not free, she whispered. I never have been. Then let me fight for your freedom. His words were fierce, urgent. Let me court you properly. Give me these 3 weeks to prove that we could be extraordinary together. If at the end you still wish to marry Bramfield, I will accept it. But give me a chance, Isabeau. Give us a chance. Your Grace, this is... Alistair, he insisted. Say my name. She looked up at him, this dangerous, damaged, devastatingly intense man who looked at her as though she were something precious and rare. Everything in her upbringing screamed that she should refuse, should flee back to the safety of Philip's undemanding affection. But that wild part of her, the part that craved freedom and truth and something more than comfort, that part whispered yes. Alistair, she breathed, and watched his eyes close as though her saying his name caused him physical pain. Again, he demanded. Alistair, stronger this time, more certain. He opened his eyes, and what she saw there stole her breath. Hunger, need, something fierce and protective and almost frightening in its intensity. I am going to court you, Isabeau Montfort, he said softly. I am going to show you what it means to be treasured for exactly who you are. And if at the end of 3 weeks you still choose Bramfield, then I will know I tried, that I fought for the most precious thing I have ever encountered. And if I do not choose him, the question escaped before she could stop it. A slow, devastating smile curved his lips. Then I will marry you myself. Scandal be damned. I will take you to Blackthorn Abbey and spend the rest of my life discovering every facet of your wild, beautiful soul. I will give you the freedom you crave and the passion you deserve, and I will thank God every day that I was brave enough to fight for you." The intensity of the promise made her knees weak. "You barely know me." "I know enough," he repeated. "I know that in all my years of war, of death, of darkness, I have never felt as alive as I do when I look at you. That is enough to start with. The rest we will discover together." "Isabeau," Philip's voice, tinged with impatience, cut through the moment. "We really must go. Mother is waiting." Reality crashed back. Isabeau stepped away from the Duke, from Alistair, her heart pounding. "I must go," she said. "I know." He caught her hand once more, pressing a kiss to her gloved knuckles that felt like a brand. "But I will see you again. Soon. Your Grace?" "Say it," he commanded softly. "Say you will see me again." She should refuse. Should end this before it spiraled beyond control. Instead, she heard herself whisper, "Yes." His smile was triumphant. "Until then, my wild one." She fled back to Philip's curricle, her mind in chaos, her body trembling. As they drove away, she could feel Alistair's eyes on her, and when she dared a glance back, he sat motionless on his black stallion, watching her with the focused intensity of a wolf tracking his chosen prey. And heaven help her, she did not want to escape. That evening a letter arrived at Hawkstone House. Isabeau was in her room, supposedly resting before dinner, but actually pacing like a caged animal, when her lady's maid brought it to her on a silver salver. "Came by special messenger, my lady," Sarah said, her eyes bright with curiosity. The man said it was urgent. There was no seal, no identifying mark, just her name written in bold, masculine script. Isabeau waited until Sarah left before breaking the unmarked wax. Inside was a single sheet of heavy paper, and the words made her breath catch. "Isabeau, I cannot sleep for thinking of you. I know I should not write this, should not burden you with the chaotic state of my thoughts, but I find I am no longer capable of the restraint that has defined my life. You asked if I know what it is to be caged. I do. I have been caged by duty, by responsibility, by the memories of things I have done and seen. I have accepted this cage as my lot, believed myself beyond redemption or happiness. Then I saw you, and the cage shattered. I do not know what will come of this. I only know that I cannot go back to the half-life I lived before. You have awakened something in me I thought long dead. Hope, perhaps, or the possibility of peace. I meant what I said in the park. I will court you, if you allow it. I will fight for you with every weapon at my disposal. And if I fail, if you choose another, I will accept it. But I will not surrender without trying. Meet me tomorrow at dawn in Hyde Park, at the north end near the Serpentine. Come alone, if you can. I wish to show you something. Yours, eh?" Isabeau read the letter 3 times, her heart racing faster with each pass. The raw honesty of it, the vulnerability beneath the fierce determination, called to something deep in her soul. She should refuse, should burn the letter and forget this madness. Instead, she carefully folded it and tucked it into her writing desk, already planning how she would escape the house before dawn without being noticed. The park was shrouded in mist when Isabeau arrived the next morning, having told her household she was going for an early ride. Her groom, Tom, accompanied her as propriety demanded, but she had instructed him to wait at the park's entrance. Alistair was already there, holding the reins of 2 horses, his black stallion and a gorgeous chestnut mare with intelligent eyes and a spirited demeanor. "You came," he said, and she heard both relief and triumph in his voice. "I should not have." She dismounted, and he was there immediately, his hands steadying her. Even through layers of riding habit and gloves, she felt the heat of his touch. "But you did." His dark eyes searched hers. "Because you feel it too, this pull between us." "I feel something," she admitted, "but feeling and acting upon those feelings are different matters entirely. Then let me make the case for action." He gestured to the chestnut mare. "This is Tempest. She was bred for speed and stamina, and she has a wild streak that makes her difficult for most riders to handle." "She is beautiful," Isabeau said, moving closer to stroke the mare's nose. Tempest nickered softly, pressing into her touch. "She is yours," Alistair said, "if you want her." Isabeau's head snapped up. "I cannot accept." "Can you not?" He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. Why? Because it would be improper for you to accept a gift from me, or because you are afraid of what accepting it would mean? Both, she said honestly. She deserves a rider who appreciates her spirit, Alistair continued. Someone who will not try to break her wildness, but will instead celebrate it. Someone like you. Isabeau looked at the mare, then back at Alistair. You are trying to seduce me with a horse. Is it working? A laugh escaped her, surprising them both. Perhaps. His answering smile transformed his face, chasing away the shadows and revealing the man he might have been without the burdens he carried. Then ride with me, Isabeau. Let me show you what freedom feels like. She knew she should refuse, knew this was dangerous, reckless, everything she had been taught to avoid. But when he helped her into Tempest's saddle, when the mare responded to her touch with eager energy, when Alistair mounted his stallion and looked at her with such fierce hope in his eyes, she could not bring herself to care about propriety. Where are we going? She asked. Somewhere we can run without restraint. His smile turned wicked. Can you keep up, my wild one? It was a challenge, and Isabeau's competitive nature rose to meet it. Try me. They raced through the misty morning park, the horses' hooves pounding against soft earth, the wind tearing at Isabeau's carefully arranged hair. Behind them, she could hear Tom shouting in protest, but she did not care. For the first time in her life, she felt utterly, completely free. Alistair rode beside her, matching her pace, and when she glanced over, she saw him watching her with such intensity that her breath caught. This was what he saw, she realized. Not the proper Earl's daughter in fashionable gowns, but this, wild and laughing and alive. They finally slowed near a secluded grove, both horses breathing hard, steam rising from their coats in the cool morning air. That was... Isabeau could not find words. Glorious, Alistair finished for her. You are glorious. He dismounted and came to help her down, his hands spanning her waist. But instead of releasing her, he held her there, suspended between horse and ground, their faces inches apart. I am going to kiss you, he said, giving her time to refuse, to pull away. She should. Every rule of propriety demanded it. But when his lips touched hers, gentle and questing at first, then deeper, more certain, Isabeau felt something inside her come alive. This was nothing like the chaste pecks Philip had bestowed upon her cheek. This was fire and hunger, and a claiming that made her blood sing. She kissed him back with all the pent-up longing she had not known she possessed, her hands fisting in his coat, her body pressing against his. He made a rough sound low in his throat, his arms banding around her, and for a timeless moment there was nothing but this, the taste of him, the feel of his heart pounding against hers, the rightness of being in his arms. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Isabeau saw her own wonder reflected in his eyes. Isabeau, he whispered, resting his forehead against hers, tell me you felt that. Tell me I am not alone in this madness. You are not alone, she admitted, tears stinging her eyes. But Alistair, I do not know what to do. I do not know how to... You do not need to know everything right now, he interrupted gently. You just need to promise me you will consider this. Consider us. Promise me you will not marry Bramfield without at least asking yourself if this, what we have, might be worth fighting for. And if the answer is yes, what then? She pulled back to look at him properly. I will be ruined. My family will be humiliated. Philip will be hurt. There will be scandal. Yes, he said simply. All of that is true, but you will be free, Isabeau. Free to choose your own path. Free to live authentically instead of performing the role society has assigned you. Is that not worth the cost? Was it? She honestly did not know. I need time, she said. Time to think, to understand what I truly want. You have 3 weeks, he reminded her. I will use every day of them to show you what we could be together, to prove that I see you, the real you, and that I treasure what I see. And at the end, the choice will be yours. I will accept whatever you decide. Even if I choose Philip? Pain flashed across his face, but he nodded. Even then. Though it will destroy me, I will accept it. You deserve the freedom to choose, Isabeau. Even if you choose a cage I believe is unworthy of you. She stood on her toes and pressed a gentle kiss to his scarred jaw. Thank you. For seeing me. For all of this. The thanks are mine, he said roughly. You have given me something I thought lost forever, a reason to hope." They rode back to where her groom waited, maintaining a proper distance that fooled no one. Tom's disapproving frown spoke volumes, and Isabeau knew the servants would be gossiping by nightfall. But as she rode home, Tempest's powerful body moving beneath her with controlled energy, Isabeau found she could not regret the morning. Not the ride, not the kiss, not the dangerous, exhilarating possibilities that Alistair had awakened in her heart. She had 3 weeks to decide the course of her entire life, and for the first time, the decision felt like it might actually be hers to make. The following 2 weeks passed in a fever dream of stolen moments and mounting tension. Alistair pursued Isabeau with the same relentless determination he had once brought to military campaigns. He appeared at every social gathering she attended, his dark eyes finding hers across crowded ballrooms. He sent flowers, not the conventional roses that Philip favored, but wild blooms that spoke of untamed beauty, foxglove and heather, lavender and thistle. He accidentally encountered her morning rides in Hyde Park so frequently that even Isabeau's oblivious groom began to look suspicious. And slowly, inexorably, Isabeau felt the walls around her heart crumbling. There was the afternoon at Lady Pemberton's garden party, when Alistair had cornered her near the rose arbor and spoken of his childhood, a lonely boy raised by cold, distant parents who saw him only as the heir to their title, never as a person in his own right. "I learned early that emotions were weakness," he had told her, his voice rough with old pain, "that to survive I must become impervious, stone where others were flesh. When I went to war, it seemed natural. I was already a soldier in spirit long before I put on the uniform." "But you are not stone," Isabeau had whispered, daring to touch his face. "You pretend to be, but I see the truth. You feel everything so deeply it frightens you." The look he had given her then, vulnerable and fierce and desperately grateful, had stolen her breath. There was the evening at the theatre when Philip had left their box to speak with friends, and Alistair had slipped into the vacant seat beside her. The opera on stage, Don Giovanni, had reached its climactic final scene, but Isabeau had been aware only of the Duke's proximity, the heat of his body inches from hers in the darkened box. "He does not deserve you," Alistair had murmured, his breath warm against her ear. "Does he even know that you despise the opera, that you attend only because it is expected?" She had turned to find him watching her with such intensity that her heart stuttered. "How do you know that?" "Because I have been studying you, Isabeau Montfort, learning what makes you smile, what brings that wild light to your eyes. You come alive when we ride through the park at dawn, when we speak of books and ideas and truths that polite society would rather ignore. But here, in this gilded cage of propriety, you fade, like a wild creature trapped behind glass." "Perhaps some creatures are meant to be domesticated," she had replied, though the words felt like ash in her mouth. "Not you." His hand had found hers in the darkness, their gloved fingers intertwining. "Never you. You were meant to run free, my fierce one." "And I—" He had stopped, his jaw clenching. "I would give anything to be the one running beside you." When Philip had returned, Isabeau's hand had still been trembling. There was the lecture at the Royal Society, which Isabeau had attended with her father. Alistair had been there, unexpected since the War Duke was not known for intellectual pursuits, and had spent the entire presentation on advances in steam engine technology, watching her instead of the speaker. Afterward, in the crush of the crowd, he had maneuvered close enough to speak privately. "You were fascinated," he had observed. "Your eyes were alight with interest. Does Bramfield know of your love for mechanical innovations?" "I have never mentioned it," she had admitted. "He would find it odd, unseemly for a lady." "Then he is a fool." Alistair's voice had been hard. "Your brilliant mind is as captivating as your beauty, Isabeau. Perhaps more so. A man worthy of you would celebrate both, not ask you to hide either." Each encounter, each conversation drew them closer, and with each passing day, the thought of marrying Philip became more unbearable, but breaking the betrothal would be catastrophic. Isabeau's father had made that abundantly clear during dinner 3 nights past, when he had mentioned in passing that the Duke of Blackthorn seemed to be taking unusual interest in their family. "I trust you understand the importance of maintaining propriety, daughter," the Earl of Hawkstone had said, his tone pleasant but his eyes sharp. "The Bramfield alliance has been planned for over a decade, Both families have invested considerable resources in the arrangement. To dissolve it now would be unfortunate for everyone involved. The unspoken threat had been clear. Any scandal would damage not only Isabeau's reputation, but her family's standing. Her younger sister, Cecilia, would find her own marriage prospects damaged. The Montfort name would be tarnished. "I understand, Papa," Isabeau had replied, though her heart had been breaking. Her mother, at least, seemed to sense her turmoil. Margaret Montfort had always been perceptive, and she watched her daughter with increasing concern as the wedding date approached. "Isabeau, my darling," she had said one afternoon while they were reviewing the final wedding arrangements, "are you quite certain you wish to proceed with this marriage?" The question had startled Isabeau into honesty. "Does it matter if I am certain? The contracts are signed, the guests are invited, everything is arranged." "That is not what I asked." Her mother had set down the guest list and taken Isabeau's hands. "I see how you look at the Duke of Blackthorn, child. And I see how he looks at you. It is not the way Philip looks at you." "Philip cares for me," Isabeau had protested weakly. "Yes, he cares, as one might care for a pleasant acquaintance, a comfortable companion." Her mother's eyes had been sad. "But the Duke, that man looks at you as though you are the air he breathes, as though losing you would destroy him." "Mamma, I married your father because it was expected," the Countess had continued softly. "Our families arranged it when I was your age, and Edmund is a good man, a fine husband. I have been content." "Content," Isabeau had repeated, hearing the resignation in that single word. "Yes, content, but not—" Her mother had paused, searching for words. "Not a flame, never a flame. I wonder sometimes what it might have been like to marry for passion instead of duty, to wake each morning beside a man who truly saw me, who cherished my mind as well as my face, who made my heart race even after 20 years. You are saying I should refuse Philip." Isabeau had hardly dared breathe. "I am saying you should consider what you want from your life, daughter. You have always been my wild child, the one who chafed against every restriction. Perhaps you need a man who will not try to tame you, but will instead run wild alongside you." She had squeezed Isabeau's hands. "But I am also saying that such a choice comes with consequences. Your father will be furious. Society will be scandalized. You may lose friends, standing, respectability. You must decide if the Duke is worth such a cost. Is he?" The question had haunted Isabeau ever since. The answer came during the pre-wedding ball at Bramfield House, 1 week before the scheduled ceremony. Isabeau stood in the center of the Bramfield ballroom, wearing a gown of pale blue silk that her future mother-in-law had selected, surrounded by well-wishers congratulating her on her upcoming nuptials. She smiled and nodded and said all the appropriate things while inside she felt as though she were drowning. Across the room, Philip held court with a group of gentlemen, discussing crop yields and tenant management with the same enthusiasm most men reserved for their mistresses. He looked pleased, comfortable, utterly content with his life and his soon-to-be wife. He had not once in all their years of betrothal asked Isabeau what she wanted, what she dreamed of, what set her soul on fire. And suddenly, she could not breathe. She needed air, space, somewhere away from the suffocating press of congratulations and expectations. Isabeau slipped through the crowd, making her way toward the terrace doors. The cool night air hit her face like a blessing as she stepped outside, gripping the stone balustrade and dragging in deep breaths. Running away? She spun to find Alistair emerging from the shadows at the far end of the terrace. He wore black evening clothes that made him look even more dangerous than usual, all sharp edges and coiled power. "I needed air," she managed, "or escape." He moved closer, and she saw the tension in every line of his body. "I have been watching you all evening, Isabeau, watching you smile while your eyes remain dead, watching you accept congratulations for a marriage that will cage everything beautiful about you. It is torture." "Then do not watch," she said, but there was no heat in the words. "I cannot help myself." He stopped directly in front of her, so close she could feel his warmth. "Even knowing it destroys me, I cannot look away from you. Alistair." Her voice broke on his name. 1 week, he said roughly. "You have 1 week until you marry him. 1 week to decide if you can truly go through with this. I do not have a choice." "You have every choice." The words burst from him with such force that she flinched. Forgive me." He dragged a hand through his hair, destroying its careful arrangement. "But you do have a choice, Isabeau. You are not property to be transferred from your father to your husband. You are a woman with a mind and heart and will of your own. And if you choose to marry Bramfield despite what burns between us, I will respect that choice. But do not tell me you have no choice. That is a lie we tell ourselves to avoid the hard decisions." "And what of duty?" she challenged. "What of the obligations I have to my family, my word? What of the obligation you have to yourself?" he countered. "To live an authentic life? To be true to your own heart? My heart is not the only consideration. Is it not?" He caught her hands, his grip almost painfully tight. "Isabeau, I have lived my entire adult life doing my duty, fighting in wars I did not start, killing men I did not hate, watching friends die for causes I barely understood. I did it because it was expected, because I believed that duty was everything, and it nearly destroyed me." She saw the haunted look enter his eyes, the memories rising. "I still wake in the night," he continued, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper, hearing the screams, smelling blood and gunpowder, seeing the faces of boys I led into battle who never came home. The guilt, the weight of all those deaths, it crushes me, Isabeau. Some nights I can barely breathe beneath it. Alistair," she touched his face, her heart breaking for him. "But then I saw you," he said fiercely. "And for the first time in years I felt something other than guilt and darkness. I felt hope, possibility, the thought that perhaps I might deserve a life beyond merely existing, that perhaps all that death and horror might be balanced by something beautiful, by you." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "You ask too much of me. I cannot be your salvation. I do not ask you to save me." His thumbs brushed away her tears with devastating gentleness. "I ask only that you save yourself, that you refuse to live a half-life of contentment and duty when you could have passion and authenticity. I ask that you be brave enough to choose what you want, not what is expected. And if what I want terrifies me, then we will face that terror together." His dark eyes burned into hers. "I am not promising perfection, Isabeau. I am damaged, scarred. I carry demons that may never fully leave me, but I swear to you that I will spend every day treasuring you, cherishing your wildness, creating a life where you can be utterly, completely yourself. Philip would give me security," she whispered. "I would give you freedom. Philip would give me respectability. I would give you passion. Philip would give me peace. And I," Alistair said, pulling her close until their bodies touched from chest to thigh, "would give you everything, every piece of my damaged, broken heart, every moment of my days, every ounce of my devotion. You would be my wife, my partner, my equal. Not a decorative appendage, but my fierce companion in all things." "Alistair," she breathed, and then his mouth was on hers. The kiss was not gentle like their first had been. This was desperation and hunger and a claiming that seared her to her soul. His hands tangled in her hair, destroying her carefully arranged coiffure. Her fingers dug into his shoulders, pulling him closer, needing more. When they finally broke apart, both shaking, Isabeau knew she had reached the point of no return. "I cannot marry Philip," she whispered. "I cannot. Not when I feel like this with you. Not when every moment with him feels like a betrayal of my own heart." Triumph and relief flooded Alistair's face. "You mean it?" "Yes." Terror and exhilaration warred in her chest. "I do not know how. I do not know what comes next. But I cannot go through with the wedding. I will not." He kissed her again, softer this time, reverent. "I will stand beside you. Whatever consequences come, whatever scandal erupts, you will not face it alone. I swear it, Isabeau. My father will be furious. Let him be furious with me. I have faced worse than an angry Earl. Philip will be hurt. Philip will survive, and in time he will realize he deserves a woman who can love him wholly, not one whose heart belongs to another." She rested her forehead against his chest, listening to his racing heartbeat. "When did I become this person? This woman who would create such scandal?" "You have always been this person," he murmured into her hair. "You simply finally have a reason to set her free." From inside the ballroom came the sound of music, a waltz beginning. Isabeau knew she should return, should maintain appearances for just a bit longer, but she could not seem to move from the circle of Alistair's arms. Dance with me, he said suddenly. Here, now, here and now. His arms came around her in proper waltz position. Before you go back in there and face them all, dance with me, Isabeau. Let me hold you just for a moment, the way I will hold you for the rest of our lives. They moved together on the deserted terrace, the music drifting from the ballroom providing accompaniment. It was improper, scandalous, utterly perfect. Isabeau closed her eyes and let herself simply feel the strength of his arms, the warmth of his body, the rightness of being exactly where she was. I love you, Alistair said quietly. I should have said it before now. I love you, Isabeau Montfort. Your wildness and your strength, your brilliant mind and your fierce heart. All of you. I love all of you. She looked up at him, this warrior who had been to hell and back, who carried scars both visible and invisible, who looked at her as though she was something precious and rare. I love you too, she whispered. I think I have from the moment I saw you. It terrifies me how much I love you. His smile was radiant, chasing away every shadow. Then we will be terrified together. They danced until the music ended, swaying together in the moonlight, and Isabeau felt something settle in her chest. This was right. Whatever came next, anger, scandal, social ruin, none of it mattered as long as she had this. Had him. Finally, reluctantly, they separated. I should return, she said, before someone notices my absence. Will you tell them tonight? Alistair asked. She considered. The thought of making such an announcement at her own pre-wedding ball made her stomach churn. No, tomorrow. I will speak with my father and Philip tomorrow. It seems kinder. To allow them this last evening of thinking everything is proceeding as planned. As you wish. He caught her hand, pressing a kiss to her palm. But do not lose courage between now and then, my fierce one. Promise me. I promise. She squeezed his hand. This is not the easy path, but it is the right one. I know that now. She slipped back into the ballroom through a side door, hoping her disheveled appearance would not draw too much attention. Caroline Ashford caught her eye across the room and hurried over, her expression concerned. Isabeau, where have you been? You look... She trailed off, taking in Isabeau's flushed cheeks and tousled hair. Oh my, you were with him. Were not you? The Duke? Caroline? Do not try to deny it. You have that look, the look of a woman who has been thoroughly kissed. Caroline grabbed her arm, pulling her into a quiet corner. Isabeau, what are you doing? Your wedding is in 1 week. I know. Isabeau took a deep breath. But there is not going to be a wedding, Caroline. I cannot marry Philip. Not when I love Alistair. Her friend's eyes widened. You are going to break the betrothal? Isabeau, the scandal... I know, Isabeau repeated, but I would rather face scandal than live a lie. I would rather be ruined and authentic than respectable and miserable. Caroline studied her for a long moment, then slowly smiled. You are braver than I ever was. I married where I was told, and while Robert is not terrible, I sometimes wonder what it would have been like to choose for myself, to follow my heart instead of my duty. It is not too late, Isabeau said gently. Yes, it is. I have children now, responsibilities, but you still have the chance to choose differently, to be happy instead of merely content. She squeezed Isabeau's hand. I will stand by you, whatever comes. And when all the matrons of the ton cut you for creating such scandal, you will still have at least one friend. Thank you, Isabeau whispered, grateful beyond words. They rejoined the party, and Isabeau spent the rest of the evening in a strange state of calm. She danced with Philip, smiled at his parents, accepted more congratulations, all while knowing that tomorrow she would destroy this carefully constructed illusion. She caught Alistair's eye once more before leaving, and the promise in his dark gaze steadied her. Tomorrow she would be brave. Tomorrow she would choose freedom. Isabeau did not sleep that night. She lay in her bed at Hawkstone House, watching the darkness slowly give way to grey pre-dawn light, rehearsing the words she would say to her father, to Philip, words that would change the course of her entire life. I cannot marry Lord Bramfield. I'm deeply sorry for the hurt this will cause, but I cannot go through with the wedding. I love another. Simple words. Devastating words. By 7 o'clock she could wait no longer. She dressed in a simple morning gown and made her way to her father's study, knowing he would be there. The Earl of Hawkstone always began his day early, reviewing estate business and correspondence. She found him at his desk, silver hair gleaming in the lamplight, reading a letter with a frown. "Papa?" He looked up, surprised. "Isabeau, what are you doing awake at this hour? I need to speak with you. It is important." Something in her tone made him set down the letter and give her his full attention. "Very well. Come, sit." She perched on the edge of the chair across from his desk, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Her heart hammered so loudly she was certain he could hear it. "Papa, I need to tell you something. About the wedding." His expression turned wary. "What about the wedding?" The words stuck in her throat. She had to force them out, each syllable an act of will. "I cannot go through with it. I am so sorry, but I cannot marry Philip." Silence. The Earl of Hawkstone stared at his daughter, his face completely still. Then slowly he set down his pen with careful precision. "I see," he said quietly. Too quietly. "And why precisely? Can you not marry the man you have been betrothed to since childhood? The man whose family has been preparing for this union for over a decade? The man who by all accounts cares for you and will provide you with an excellent life?" "Because I do not love him," Isabeau said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Love." Her father's tone turned cold. "You speak of love as though it were a requirement for marriage. It is not. Duty, compatibility, shared station, these are what matter. Love, if it comes, is merely a pleasant addition." "It is not merely a pleasant addition, Papa. It is everything." She leaned forward, desperate to make him understand. "I cannot spend my entire life with someone I do not love, someone who does not truly see me or understand me. It would be a slow death of the spirit." "Dramatic words, daughter." The Earl rose from his chair, moving to the window overlooking the square. "This is about the Duke of Blackthorn, is it not?" Isabeau's breath caught. "How did you—" "I have eyes, Isabeau. I have watched the two of you dance around each other for weeks now. I had hoped it was a passing infatuation that would fade once you were safely married. But I see I was mistaken." "It is not an infatuation," she said firmly. "I love him, Papa, and he loves me. We wish to marry. You wish to marry." Her father turned to face her, and she saw fury in his eyes. "You wish to break a betrothal that has been publicly announced, creating scandal that will damage both the Montford and Bramfield families, all because you have developed a passion for the War Duke. Have you considered, daughter, what this will do to your sister, to your mother, to our family's standing?" Guilt twisted in her stomach. "I have considered it. I know there will be consequences." "Consequences." He laughed, harsh and bitter. "You understand nothing of consequences, child. You will be ruined. No respectable family will receive you. Your sister will be tainted by association, her marriage prospects damaged. The Bramfields will be humiliated and justifiably furious. They may even demand financial compensation for breach of contract. And for what? A man you barely know? A damaged soldier who will likely bring you nothing but misery?" "He is not damaged," Isabeau protested, standing to face her father. "He is wounded, yes, but—" "He is broken," her father interrupted harshly. "Everyone knows it. The man can barely function in society. He has nightmares, I have heard. Episodes where he loses touch with reality. You think you can heal him with your love. You are a naive child playing at romance." "I am not a child." The words burst from her with surprising force. "I am a woman of 22, and I have the right to choose my own husband, my own life, and I choose Alistair." "You choose scandal and ruin. If that is the cost of being true to my own heart, then yes, I choose it." They stared at each other across the study, father and daughter at an impasse. Finally, the Earl spoke, his voice heavy with disappointment. "If you do this, Isabeau, there will be consequences beyond social scandal. I will not support this union. I will not give my blessing or my consent. You will be cut off from your family, your inheritance. You will be on your own." The threat landed like a physical blow. "Papa, please—" "No." He held up a hand. "You have made your choice. Now live with it. Get out of my sight. I cannot bear to look at you right now." Tears blurred her vision. "Papa, I am sorry. I know this hurts you, but I cannot live a lie. I cannot—" "Get out!" The roar made her flinch. She had never heard her father raise his voice like that, had never seen such fury in his eyes. She fled. Isabeau's mother found her in her room an hour later, curled on her bed, tears soaking her pillow. The Countess sat beside her, gently stroking her daughter's hair. "I heard," she said softly. Your father told me everything. I have ruined everything, Isabeau sobbed. Our family, Philip, Cecilia's prospects. Hush. Her mother's touch was soothing. You have not ruined everything. You have simply made a difficult choice. Isabeau looked up, surprised. You are not angry? Oh, I am many things, concerned, frightened for you, worried about the consequences. But angry? No. The Countess smiled sadly. I told you before, I married for duty. It has been fine. But watching you with the Duke, seeing the way you come alive in his presence, I cannot bring myself to condemn you for choosing differently than I did. Papa will never forgive me. Your father is hurt and frightened right now. He sees the damage this will do to our standing, and it terrifies him. But Edmund loves you, darling. In time he will come to accept your choice, especially if the Duke makes you happy. He does, Isabeau whispered. Alistair makes me feel seen, Mama. Like I matter for more than just my bloodline or my ability to make a good match. He sees the real me, wild and imperfect and questioning, and he loves me for it, not despite it. Then you must go to him, her mother said. You must tell Lord Bramfield the truth, face the scandal with courage and build the life you truly want. You make it sound simple. It is not simple. It is terrifying and difficult and will hurt people you care about. But it is also brave and true and authentically yours. The Countess squeezed her daughter's hand. I will stand with you, Isabeau. Your father may need time, but I will not abandon you. Thank you, Isabeau whispered, fresh tears spilling. Thank you, Mama. By noon, Isabeau stood in the Bramfield drawing room, facing Philip and his parents. Her mother had accompanied her, providing silent support, while her father had remained at home, too angry to attend. Philip looked confused as Isabeau requested a private word. His parents, Lord and Lady Bramfield, exchanged concerned glances, but withdrew, leaving the betrothed couple alone. Isabeau, what is this about? Philip asked. His pleasant face creased with worry. You look upset. Has something happened? She took a deep breath, steeling herself. Philip, I need to tell you something, and I need you to please listen without interruption. Of course. He took her hands, and she hated the kindness in his touch. This would have been so much easier if he had been cruel or dismissive. I cannot marry you, she said, the words coming out in a rush. I am so deeply sorry, Philip, but I cannot go through with the wedding. I have developed feelings for someone else. The Duke of Blackthorn. We are in love and we wish to marry. Philip stared at her, uncomprehending. You are in love with Blackthorn? But we are to be married in 6 days, Isabeau. The guests are invited. The ceremony is planned. Your trousseau is ready. How can you— I know, she interrupted, pulling her hands free. I know all of this, and I am desperately sorry for the hurt and humiliation this will cause you and your family. But I cannot marry you when my heart belongs to another. It would not be fair to either of us. Fair? Philip's confusion was giving way to anger. You speak of fairness while breaking a betrothal that has stood for over a decade? While creating a scandal that will humiliate my entire family? While choosing a man you have known for mere weeks over one who has cared for you all your life? You have cared for me as a friend, Isabeau said gently. Not as a wife. You have never once asked me what I truly want, Philip. What I dream of. What sets my soul on fire. You have been kind and pleasant, but you have never truly seen me. I see you perfectly well, he protested. You are my intended bride, the woman I have been preparing to marry since we were children. Exactly, she said. I am your intended bride, not the woman you love desperately, not the person you cannot live without. I am an obligation you have accepted. And you deserve better than that, Philip. You deserve a woman who loves you wholly, who chooses you not because she was told to, but because she cannot imagine life with anyone else. He stared at her, and for the first time, she saw hurt in his eyes, real pain beneath the confusion and anger. I thought I was enough for you, he said quietly. I thought we would be content together. We would have been content, she agreed. But content is not enough for me anymore, Philip. I want more. I want passion and understanding, and a partner who knows my heart as well as I know his. I have found that with Alistair, and I cannot let it go, even if keeping it means losing everything else. Philip was silent for a long moment. Then he straightened his shoulders, and she saw something like dignity settle over him. Very well, he said stiffly. If that is your decision, I will not stand in your way. I will inform my parents that the betrothal is ended by mutual agreement. It will still be scandalous, but perhaps slightly less so than a unilateral rejection. Thank you, Isabeau whispered, grateful for his unexpected grace. Do not thank me. His voice was cold now. I am not being noble, Isabeau. I am being practical. A man does not want a wife who loves another. It would be intolerable. He moved toward the door, then paused. I hope the Duke makes you happy. I hope you never regret this choice. Because if you do, if you discover that passion fades and you are left with nothing but the ruins of your reputation, do not come to me seeking comfort. I will not be available. With that, he left, closing the door with careful precision behind him. Isabeau stood alone in the drawing room, shaking. It was done. The betrothal was broken. There was no going back now. Lady Bramfield appeared moments later, her face tight with fury. You have disgraced my family, Lady Isabeau. I hope your Duke is worth the cost, because you have made an enemy of the Bramfields this day. We will not forget this insult. I understand, Isabeau said quietly, and I am truly sorry. Sorry is insufficient. The older woman's eyes were hard. You are precisely the sort of selfish, thoughtless girl I warned my son about. I can only thank heaven he is well rid of you. The words stung, but Isabeau bore them without flinching. She had expected this, had known the price of her choice. She and her mother left Bramfield House in silence, and as their carriage rolled through London streets, Isabeau felt the weight of what she had done settle over her. She had broken a betrothal that had stood for a decade. She had humiliated a good man who had never been anything but kind to her. She had damaged her family's reputation and her sister's prospects. She had created exactly the sort of scandal that society would feast upon for months. But when she closed her eyes, she saw Alistair's face, felt his arms around her, heard his voice promising her freedom and passion and a life lived authentically, and she knew, despite everything, that she had made the right choice. The scandal broke across London society like a thunderstorm. By evening, every drawing room in Mayfair buzzed with the shocking news. Lady Isabeau Montfort had broken her betrothal to Lord Philip Bramfield mere days before the wedding. Some said she had run mad. Others claimed she had been seduced by the mysterious Duke of Blackthorn. The more creative gossip suggested a pregnancy, a secret marriage, even a duel between Bramfield and the Duke. Isabeau remained at Hawkstone House, enduring her father's continued fury and silence. The Earl had not spoken to her since their confrontation that morning, communicating only through terse notes delivered by servants. As darkness fell, a message arrived from Alistair delivered by his man of business. Come to me. I am at Blackthorn House. We will face this together. Isabeau did not hesitate. She wrapped herself in a cloak and slipped out the servants' entrance, taking a hackney coach to the Duke's London residence, a massive townhouse in Grosvenor Square that had stood empty for years while Alistair was at war. The butler who answered her knock looked startled to see a young lady arriving alone at such an hour, but he showed her to the library where Alistair waited. He rose when she entered, crossing the room in 3 strides to pull her into his arms. You did it, he said against her hair. You were so brave, my fierce one. I was terrified, she admitted, clinging to him. My father will not speak to me. The Bramfields hate me. All of London is talking about our scandal. Let them talk. He pulled back to frame her face with his hands. We will leave London, go to Blackthorn Abbey in Derbyshire. Let the scandal die down while we build our life together. And my family will come around in time, or they will not. But you will have me, Isabeau. For the rest of our lives you will have me. She looked up at this man who had turned her world upside down, who had seen past her careful facade to the wild, restless spirit beneath, who had fought for her with every weapon at his disposal. When can we marry? She asked. His smile was brilliant. I secured a special license 2 days ago. We can marry tomorrow if you wish, or we can wait, give society time to adjust. Tomorrow, she interrupted. I want to marry you tomorrow, Alistair. I want to begin our life together as soon as possible. Then tomorrow it is. He kissed her, tender and reverent. I will make you happy, Isabeau, I swear it. Every day for the rest of our lives, I will strive to deserve the gift of your love. You already deserve it, she whispered. You have always deserved it. You just needed someone to show you." They stood together in the quiet library, two wounded souls who had found healing in each other's arms, and Isabeau felt peace settle over her for the first time in weeks. This was right. Whatever came next, social ostracism, family estrangement, financial hardship, none of it mattered as long as she had Alistair. They had chosen each other, and that choice, that brave, terrifying, beautiful choice, would change both their lives forever. They married the next morning in the small chapel on the Blackthorn Abbey estate, having left London before dawn. Only Isabeau's mother and Caroline Ashford attended as witnesses, both women weeping openly as Alistair and Isabeau exchanged vows. Isabeau wore a simple ivory gown, her hair loose around her shoulders the way Alistair preferred. He wore his military uniform, the scarlet coat a splash of colour against the chapel's stone walls. "I, Alistair James Navarre, take you, Isabeau Charlotte Montford, to be my lawfully wedded wife," he said, his deep voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "I promise to cherish you, to honour your wildness, to create a life where you are always free to be yourself. I promise to tell you truth even when it is difficult, to stand beside you in all things, to love you with every breath I take until the day I die." Tears streamed down Isabeau's face as she spoke her own vows. "I, Isabeau Charlotte Montford, take you, Alistair James Navarre, to be my lawfully wedded husband. I promise to see you, not the Duke, not the soldier, but the man beneath. I promise to be your partner, your equal, your home when the darkness becomes too much. I promise to love you fiercely, honestly, completely, for all the days of my life." When the elderly vicar pronounced them husband and wife, Alistair's kiss was both gentle and possessive, a claiming and a promise all at once. "My Duchess," he murmured against her lips. "My wild, brave, magnificent Duchess." "My Duke," she replied, smiling through her tears. "My wounded warrior who had the courage to fight for love." They left the chapel hand in hand, and as they stepped into the bright morning sunshine, Isabeau felt something inside her unfurl, that caged, restless part of her spirit that had been trapped for so long. She was free, free to love as she chose, free to live authentically, free to be wild and imperfect and herself, and beside her stood a man who would not only allow that freedom, but celebrate it, protect it, cherish it as the precious gift it was. The weeks that followed were a revelation. Blackthorn Abbey was a sprawling estate in the Peak District of Derbyshire, all grey stone and ancient forests and wild moorland that stretched to the horizon. It was isolated, dramatic, beautiful, everything London was not. Alistair gave Isabeau free rein of the house and grounds, encouraging her to make changes as she saw fit. She transformed the dusty, unused library into a bright space filled with books on every subject that interested her: mechanical engineering, philosophy, natural history. She established a morning routine of riding Tempest across the moors, the wild landscape matching her own untamed spirit, and slowly, carefully, she helped Alistair confront his demons. The nightmares came frequently those first weeks. She would wake to find him sitting bolt upright in bed, drenched in sweat, eyes wild and unseeing as he fought battles only he could see. The first time it happened, she had frozen, uncertain what to do. But instinct had guided her, and she had simply reached out, touching his face gently. "Alistair," she had whispered, "you are home. You are safe. The war is over." He had looked at her, recognition slowly returning to his eyes. Then he had collapsed against her, shaking, and she had held him while he wept. Deep, wrenching sobs for all the men he had lost, all the horrors he had witnessed. "I see their faces," he had choked out. "Every night I see them. Young boys who trusted me to keep them safe, and I led them to slaughter." "You led them to war," she had corrected gently, "which is different from slaughter. You did your duty, Alistair. The deaths were not your fault." "Were they not?" "I gave the orders. I chose the strategies. If I had been wiser, better, perhaps—" "Perhaps nothing," she had interrupted firmly. "You are not God, my love. You could not control the outcome of every battle. You could only do your best with the information you had, and by all accounts you saved more lives than you lost. You were a brilliant commander, Alistair. Even in your darkest moments, you never lost your humanity." He had stared at her, something like wonder in his eyes. "How can you be so certain?" "Because I know you," she had said simply. "I know your heart, and it is good and true, even when you doubt it." Over time, the nightmares came less frequently. Alistair learned to speak of his experiences instead of burying them, and Isabeau listened without judgment, offering comfort and understanding in equal measure. She also discovered new facets of the man she had married. Away from London's oppressive society, Alistair relaxed in ways she had never seen. His smiles came more easily. His laughter, when she coaxed it from him, was a thing of beauty. He showed her the estate, the tenant farms where he spent hours discussing crop improvements with farmers who clearly respected him, the village where he funded a school for local children, the ancient forest where he had played as a lonely boy. "I was never meant for drawing rooms and balls," he told her one afternoon as they rode through the woods. "I was meant for this, land and duty and the simple work of caring for people who depend on me." "Then we will build our life here," Isabeau had replied, "away from society's expectations, creating something authentic and true." They fell into a rhythm, mornings spent in separate pursuits, Isabeau in her library or riding the moors while Alistair managed estate business. Afternoons together, exploring the countryside or reading side by side in companionable silence. Evenings discussing everything from politics to philosophy to their hopes for the future. And nights. Nights were a revelation of a different sort. Alistair was a patient, generous lover who took time to learn what pleased her, who seemed to find joy in her pleasure. Their passion was fierce and tender by turns, and Isabeau discovered depths of feeling she had never imagined possible. "I love you," he whispered one night as they lay tangled together, the firelight casting shadows across his scarred skin. "More than I thought myself capable of loving anything. You have given me back my life, Isabeau." "We have given each other life," she corrected, tracing the scar along his ribs, a souvenir from a French bayonet. "I was dying slowly in that gilded cage. You set me free." "We set each other free," he agreed, pulling her closer, "and we will remain free together for the rest of our days." 3 months after their wedding, news arrived from London. Isabeau's mother had written regularly, but the letter that arrived in June contained surprising information. "My dearest daughter, I write with news that may please you. Your father has, after much consideration, and not a little persuasion on my part, agreed to visit Blackthorn Abbey. He wishes to see you to meet with the Duke and to discuss a reconciliation. I know he was harsh when you broke the betrothal, but time has softened his anger. More importantly, I have helped him understand that your happiness matters more than social standing, that a daughter's joy is worth more than society's approval. He will arrive next week if you are willing to receive him. I hope you are, my darling. Life is too short to remain estranged from those we love. Your sister Cecilia sends her regards." The scandal did damage her prospects initially, but she has recently attracted the attention of a very suitable young man who seems unconcerned with family drama. She may yet make a good match after all. I remain, as always, your loving mother. Isabeau showed the letter to Alistair, uncertain how to feel. "Do you wish to see him?" he asked carefully. I do not know. Part of me is still angry at how he reacted, how willing he was to cut me off rather than support my choice." "He was frightened," Alistair said, "and hurt. I have some experience with lashing out when frightened." He took her hand. "But if you wish to reconcile, I will support you. And if you wish to maintain distance, I will support that too. The choice is yours, my love." Isabeau considered. She thought of her father's disappointment, his fury, his final words, "Get out of my sight." But she also thought of all the years before, of the man who had taught her to ride, who had encouraged her love of learning even when society frowned upon educated women, who had loved her in his own stern, formal way. "I want to see him," she decided. "I want to try to build a bridge, not for his sake or for society's, but for mine, because holding on to anger is exhausting, and I would rather spend my energy on love." Alistair smiled, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "Then we will receive him together, and we will show him that our choice, our love, was the right one." The Earl of Hawkstone arrived the following Tuesday, his carriage rumbling up the long drive to Blackthorn Abbey under threatening skies. Isabeau stood at the entrance with Alistair beside her, his hand warm and steady in hers. She was nervous, her heart racing. But she was not alone. She would never be alone again. Her father descended from the carriage looking older than she remembered, his face lined with weariness. He stopped several feet away, studying them both with an expression Isabeau could not read. "Papa," she said softly. "Isabeau." He inclined his head formally, then turned to Alistair. "Your Grace." "My lord." Alistair's voice was respectful but firm. "Thank you for coming. Will you join us inside?" They moved to the drawing room, the atmosphere tense and awkward. Tea was served, though no one touched it. Finally, the Earl spoke. "I was harsh when you broke the betrothal," he said, looking at Isabeau. "Harsher than I should have been. I was angry and frightened and convinced you were making a terrible mistake." "And now?" Isabeau asked. Her father's eyes moved to Alistair, studying him with the same intensity he might apply to a business contract. "Now I see how he looks at you, how you look at him. And I realize that perhaps—" He paused, seeming to struggle with the words. "Perhaps I was wrong to value social standing over your happiness." "Papa, let me finish," he interrupted gently. "I do not approve of the scandal you created. I likely never will. But your mother has helped me understand that your joy matters more than society's opinion. And if this man," he nodded at Alistair, "makes you truly happy, then I can accept your choice." Tears filled Isabeau's eyes. "He does make me happy, Papa. So very happy. Happier than I ever imagined possible. Then I will make my peace with it." The Earl rose and approached Alistair, extending his hand. "I wronged you, Your Grace. I called you broken and damaged. When I should have recognized your strength and courage, I apologize." Alistair stood, accepting the handshake with grave courtesy. "There is truth in what you said, my lord. I am damaged by my experiences. But your daughter has shown me that damage does not mean beyond repair. She has given me reason to heal, purpose beyond mere survival." "She has that effect," the Earl said with the ghost of a smile. He turned back to Isabeau. "May I?" He opened his arms. Isabeau flew into them, and her father held her tight, his hand stroking her hair the way he had when she was small. "I have missed you, little one," he whispered. "I have missed you too, Papa." They stood like that for a long moment, rebuilding a bridge that had nearly burned. When they finally separated, the Earl's eyes were damp. "Your mother sends her love, and your sister, Cecilia, is engaged to the son of a baron, a good man who does not care about scandal. She is quite happy." Relief flooded through Isabeau. At least her choice had not ruined Cecilia's future entirely. The Earl stayed for 2 days, and in that time, Isabeau watched him come to genuinely respect Alistair. They discussed estate management, politics, even the war, and her father seemed to recognize that beneath the scarred exterior was a man of intelligence and integrity. On the morning of his departure, the Earl took Isabeau aside. "I see why you chose him," he said quietly. "He is extraordinary. Wounded, yes, but with a core of steel. He will protect you fiercely." "He already does," Isabeau replied. "But more than that, Papa, he sees me, truly sees me, and he loves what he sees." "Then I give you my blessing, daughter, belatedly but sincerely." He squeezed her hand. "Be happy. That is all I have ever truly wanted for you." As her father's carriage disappeared down the drive, Isabeau leaned against Alistair's solid warmth. "One bridge rebuilt," she murmured. "And many more to build," he replied. "Our life together has only just begun, my Duchess. We have years ahead of us to create something beautiful." She turned in his arms, looking up at the man who had fought for her, who had given her freedom and passion and authentic love. "Then let us begin," she said, and kissed him as the first drops of rain began to fall. 5 years later, Isabeau stood at the nursery window of Blackthorn Abbey, watching her husband teach their 4-year-old son to ride a pony in the gardens below. Little Edmund, named for his grandfather, a gesture that had completed the reconciliation with her father, sat fearlessly in the saddle, his black hair and dark eyes marking him as his father's son. "Steady, Edmund," Alistair instructed, his deep voice carrying up to the window. "Gentle with the reins, the pony wants to trust you." Behind Isabeau, their 2-year-old daughter, Margaret, napped in her cradle, her chestnut curls spread across the pillow. She had Isabeau's colouring and temperament, already showing signs of the same wild spirit that had driven her mother to choose love over duty. So much had changed in 5 years. The scandal had eventually faded, as scandals do. Isabeau and Alistair remained somewhat outside fashionable society, but they had built a life of purpose and meaning at Blackthorn Abbey. They had established schools, improved tenant housing, created employment opportunities for veterans who, like Alistair, struggled to reintegrate into civilian life. And slowly, painfully, Alistair had healed. The nightmares still came occasionally, but they were less frequent, less intense. He had learned to speak of his experiences without shame, had accepted that his scars, both visible and invisible, were part of who he was, not defects to be hidden. He had also discovered talents he had not known he possessed. He wrote articles on military reform that were published in respected journals. He served as an advocate for soldiers returning from the wars, using his title and influence to secure pensions and support for men the government had forgotten. Most importantly, he had learned to accept happiness, to believe he deserved the love Isabeau offered so freely. "Mama! Mama, look!" Edmund's excited shout drew her attention back to the garden. "I am cantering." Well, it was more of a bouncing trot, but Isabeau waved enthusiastically. "Wonderful, darling." Alistair looked up at the window, and even at this distance, Isabeau could see his smile. He had smiled so rarely when they first met, but now it came easily, transforming his harsh features into something beautiful. He said something to Edmund, then handed the pony's lead to a groom and strode toward the house with that same predatory grace that had first captivated her. Minutes later, he appeared in the nursery doorway. "Edmund is convinced he is ready for a full-sized horse," he announced, moving to slip his arms around Isabeau's waist from behind. "I tried to explain that 4 is perhaps too young, but he has your stubborn streak." "My stubborn streak?" She laughed, leaning back against his chest. "He gets that from you, my love. Perhaps we are both stubborn, then." He pressed a kiss to her neck. "Which is why we suit each other so well." She turned in his arms, studying his face. The shadows were still there. She doubted they would ever fully disappear, but they were lighter now. Manageable. No longer the all-consuming darkness that had defined him when they met. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked softly. "Choosing me? Choosing this life?" His answer was immediate, fierce. "Never. Not for a single moment. You gave me back my life, Isabeau. My purpose. My soul. I would choose you 1,000 times over, in any circumstance. Even though it meant scandal, social ostracism, walking away from the life you knew. Especially then." He cupped her face tenderly. "Because that life was killing me slowly. I was existing, not living, going through motions without meaning. Then I saw you on those stairs, wild and beautiful, and so achingly alive, and something in me woke up. You reminded me that life could be more than duty and darkness, that it could be joy and passion and authentic connection. You saved me too," she whispered, "from a life of comfortable misery, from slowly dying inside a gilded cage. Then we saved each other," he said, echoing words they had spoken years ago. "And we will continue to save each other, every day, for the rest of our lives." He kissed her then, tender and thorough, and Isabeau felt the same spark that had ignited between them that first night at the Redmond dinner. Time had not dimmed their passion. If anything, it had deepened it, adding layers of understanding and companionship to the initial attraction. From the cradle, Margaret stirred, making soft, cooing sounds. "Your daughter wakes," Isabeau murmured against Alistair's lips. "Our daughter," he corrected, moving to lift the toddler from her cradle. Margaret immediately snuggled against his chest, her small hand fisting in his shirt. Isabeau watched them, her heart full. This dangerous, damaged warrior held their daughter with such exquisite gentleness, such obvious love. He was a devoted father, patient and attentive, determined to give their children the affection and attention he had been denied as a child. "I love you," she said, the words coming easily after 5 years of marriage. "I love our life, our children, this beautiful existence we have built together. And I love you," he replied, his dark eyes soft. "My wild duchess, my salvation, my home." Edmund burst into the nursery then, full of energy and excitement, demanding that both parents come see his riding prowess. They followed him down to the gardens, Margaret on Alistair's hip, and spent the afternoon watching their son practice his skills. As evening fell and they gathered in the drawing room, Alistair reading by the fire, while Isabeau sketched designs for a new mechanical irrigation system she wanted to implement on the estate, the children playing with wooden toys on the carpet, Isabeau felt profound gratitude wash over her. This was what she had chosen, not comfort or security or social standing, but this messy, imperfect, authentic love. A partnership built on mutual respect and understanding. Children who would grow up seeing their parents as equals, learning that happiness mattered more than duty. She had been brave enough to choose freedom over expectations, to fight for love instead of settling for comfort. And in return, she had received everything she had ever truly wanted, a life lived on her own terms, with a man who saw and cherished every facet of her wild soul. "What are you thinking?" Alistair asked, looking up from his book. "I am thinking," she replied, meeting his eyes across the room, "that I made the right choice, that every difficult moment, every scandal, every sacrifice was worth it to have this, to have you, to have our family." He set down his book and crossed to her, kneeling beside her chair. "We both made the right choice to fight for each other, to choose love over convenience." Edmund looked up from his toys. "Papa, why are you on the floor?" "Because I'm telling your mother something important," Alistair replied solemnly. "What?" their son asked with a child's innocent curiosity. "That she is the bravest, most magnificent woman I have ever known, and that I am grateful every day that she chose me." "Why wouldn't she choose you?" Edmund frowned, puzzled. "You are the best papa in all of England." Isabeau and Alistair exchanged a look, filled with shared amusement and deep affection. "You see," she said softly, "our children will grow up knowing that love, real, authentic love, is worth fighting for. They will never settle for less than what we have found. And they will know," Alistair added, "that strength comes in many forms. That being wounded does not mean being broken. That healing is possible even when the scars run deep." Margaret toddled over, demanding to be picked up. Alistair lifted her, settling both children on his lap as Isabeau joined them on the floor, creating a small circle of warmth and love. Outside, rain began to fall on the Derbyshire moors, wild, untamed country that matched the wild, untamed spirits who had found their home here. And in the drawing room of Blackthorn Abbey, a family forged from courage and love, and the willingness to choose authenticity over expectation, settled in for the evening, grateful for every choice that had led them to this perfect, imperfect moment. They had been ruthless in their pursuit of each other. They had been brave in the face of scandal and opposition. They had been true to their hearts, even when the cost was high. And they had won everything that mattered: love, family, freedom, and a life lived authentically. Two souls, once caged by duty and trauma, had set each other free. And in that freedom, they had found not just love, but home, forever. The end. Thank you for staying with us until the end of this powerful love story. If you were touched by the journey of Lady Isabeau and the Duke of Blackthorn, we invite you to subscribe, like, comment, and share this story with others. Your support, truly from the heart, keeps us inspired to bring you more tales filled with love, redemption, and emotional turning points. And don't forget, another unforgettable story from our channel appears at the end of this video. Click and be amazed by what awaits you next. With all our gratitude, the Legends of the Fall team.